All right, welcome. This is our first PA webinar for Service to School. I'm Peter Campbell, the director of the Healthcare Professionals team. And Candice Creecy is our PA program manager. And she's going to be talking all today about how to get into a PA program, what it's like, and that whole process through application, and then what the studies are like. So just a little background on Candice. She is currently in the Marine Corps, I believe in the Guard. Is that right? Candice can clarify that, but as a weapons system officer. And then day-to-day life, she is at MIT right now getting an MBA, as well as a actual PA, an emergency medicine PA at Brigham and Women's Hospital. So she's quite busy, but she joined us in Service to School to help run the PA program, to help all veterans and active duty out there who would like to pursue a PA. So without further ado, I'll pass it off to Candice.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming. Thanks, P. I appreciate it, the introduction there. Like you said, so I spent 12 years active duty in the Marine Corps as a F-18 weapons systems officer, so like a backseater in the F-18, kind of like Goose, which is a bit different generation, although there's a new Top Gun movie coming out. And then I did 4 years at SEER School, where I worked pretty closely with a bunch of corpsmen and IDCs out there. So I do know the medical community on the Navy side pretty well. And then I left there to go to the reserves. So I'm currently in the Marine Corps Reserves with 6 Anglo out of Seattle as a JTAC evaluator, as well as operations officer there. And then also at school, like you said. So busy, but happy to be here. And hopefully I can answer some of your questions. I did a 18-month Mayo Clinic Emergency Medicine Fellowship after PA school, and I'll talk more about fellowships at the end of the webinar. And then now I've been working at Brigham and Women's Hospital for about 6 months as an EMPA. So a lot to chat about. I have a lot of experience in different things, so hopefully I can answer any questions you might have. So I'm going to start sharing here, and I can't see the chat box during this brief. So I'm sure Pete and other people keep me honest here if there's any big questions that need to be answered immediately. So if not, please hold your questions till the end, write them down, and I promise we'll have lots of time for that. Okay, guys and ladies? All right, let me share my screen here. All right, so nothing crazy here. PA webinar, that's what we're going to talk about. The overall and industry overview of the PA field, as well as the application process. And then I'll briefly go into life after, well, PA school in general, life after PA, and kind of what that looks like for you. Because if you're getting into this, you're going through the rigmarole of applying and all the pain that it is to do that. Obviously, you're planning on a good long career as a PA. So here we go. What is a PA? So we're actually one of the youngest branches of medicine, if you will. Obviously, we all know what a doctor is, whether it's an MD or a DO. We all know what nurses are, and of course, NPs, nurse practitioners, which generally go from being a nurse, do some clinical time, and then work into their master's and now their doctorate. There are many online programs for nurse practitioners as well at this point. So a PA, I'd say probably if you're going to explain it to someone, it's pretty similar to an NP. Some people call it a mid-level provider. Some people call it an APP, so advanced practice provider. And honestly, what's in a name? So we are physician assistants. That just got changed by our governing body, the AAPA, to physician associate, which helps marry up to other countries. So in Europe, there's physician associates. In New Zealand, there's physician associates, as well as Australia and Canada. So now we all are the same. Big picture, we provide care. We provide care like the rest of the healthcare team, whether that's doctors, that's nurses, that's NPs. We're able to run tests, do physical exams, run diagnostics, make diagnoses, as well as recommendations. PAs do surgery. Well, they assist with surgery, I should say. They assist in clinic, and they're in every different specialty that you can think of. The big caveat here is that unlike nurse practitioners, PAs must work under a supervising physician. This is mandatory in every state in America. I will say that across the states, what PAs can and cannot do varies quite widely. All right. Frozen. Stand by. Technical difficulties. All right. Different roles. I talked about how PAs practice in every setting. So on the left-hand side, you can see the work setting. So it's more than just big old hospitals, right? You think of Mass General, you think of Mayo Clinic, you think of Brigham and Women's, Stanford, UC Irvine, et cetera. There's also urgent care centers, private practice offices, and outpatient clinics. And then we go into specialties. So primary care, that is kind of originally how we were built. We came from the military in like the 60s. We're built to fill this gap in the primary care field. And that's just what we did. Over time, we continue to branch out where the need was, where you're needed. So that's internal medicine, that's emergency medicine, pediatric subspecialties, surgery, let's say anything like toxicology, like you name it, PAs are likely there. And it's busy. It's busy because everyone knows how great being a PA is now. The word is out. We're listed on number 1 on the best 100 jobs as of 2021. We're the best healthcare job out there, and we're one of the fastest growing jobs in America. I think I saw some statistic where the PA job growth is up to 24% in the next 5 years, which is crazy when you think of a normal sector being somewhere between 5 and 9%, and that's doing well. So we're going rapidly. And with that, we're feeling some constraints of what we can and cannot do, and also where we can and cannot practice. But that's something to talk about offline once you're further into practice or the Q&A. Here's what you guys are curious about. Application. There are currently 277 PA programs that are accredited under the accrediting body for PA programs. They're in 45 states. So the states where you're looking at, they aren't, is like Vermont, I believe, let's see here, Vermont. See if I was really good at building this off the top of my head. A lot of this, Delaware, a lot of the smaller states don't have PA programs yet. But I will say when I went to PA school, I graduated from Wake Forest University in 2019. That number was more around 244. So just in 2 years, we've added 30 programs to the total. CASPL applications submitted last year were 26,000, almost 27,000 applications out there with 10,000 matriculants. Overall acceptance rate is about 20% or so. Now, applicant facts. So who are the people that you're competing with or working with, depending on how you view it? Average age is about 23. So as a veteran, as someone active duty, looking to get out and go to PA school, overall, we're older than that, generally, even if you did 4 years in or whatnot. So that's going to be something that's different for you. And PA programs are going to want to see that you're able to interact with 23-year-olds if you're 45. And that's just something you're going to have to show them. 1.91% of students and applicants are military veterans. So we're a very small percentage, which means that you have something unique. You have something that other 98% of applicants don't have. That is experience. That is actually being out in the real world, managing people, managing tough situations, being in high stress environments. You are gifted, even though you might not feel that way, right? We all think in the military, we're all the same, right? You have something unique, and that's important for you to convey to the application committee. GPA, 3.52 is the average, but just know that if you're going for one of the higher programs out there, that it's going to be much higher than that. This is somewhere where generally veterans kind of lack, is that high school. We didn't really think about college maybe at the time when we were in there because we were looking at the military and going to go do some cool stuff. And so we let our grades slide a bit, and that's something that's pretty common among veterans. GRE 310. So again, something else that's hard for veterans. We're usually really good as far as the qualitative, so speaking, writing, etc. We kind of stink at the quantitative, so math. Many of us maybe didn't do geometry or calculus, etc. since high school, and it's been, 16 years since we did that. So a lot of space to make up. And lastly, HCE is healthcare. So some of you are corpsmen, some of you are medics, etc. You have an advantage, all right? You have actual healthcare experience time. As far as other people who might be looking to transition into PA who aren't in those fields, you're gonna have to make up that time by either gapping, so going out and volunteering for EMS, doing scribe work, depending on what school you're going to, in order to build those hours. So 2,600 hours is a lot of hours to be doing experience. So just a little bit of a snapshot. I know I said the acceptance rate is roughly about 20% for PA school, but it's a lot different when we start going for the top 10 schools as listed by US News. All right, so Duke is listed number 1. As you can see there, I have their pants PANCE success rate, so the passing rate. So what percentage of their students went through this program for however many months and actually passed the certifying exam called the PANCE, which is this awful 350, 60 question exam. And then the acceptance rate. So 2.2% is obviously much lower than 20%. It's pretty damn high, pardon my French. Iowa is next, Baylor, Utah, and Emory. Pretty standard acceptance rates there, less than 4%. And then moving into George Washington out in DC, Colorado, Texas Southwest Medical, Wake Forest, my alma mater, go Deeks, and Drexel IPAP, which is the military program, which some of you in the military now still can maybe transition to, OHSH, and obviously USC. So let's talk about the steps, because it's a lot. There's a lot that goes into making sure that your application is strong and you get through the entire process to acceptance. So really the first step that you have to worry about is which schools you want to go to. What kind of prereqs have you already done and which ones are you going to have to make up? What kind of testing are you going to have to do? Actually filling out your applications, so that means your CASPA as well as the program applications. The interview, which depending on who you are is the most stressful part. And then the acceptance or the wait list. So we'll go through these one by one. Which school? It really varies. Some of you are be crazy like me and apply to all the top schools in the nation because that's just what we do. Some of you will be concerned about staying in a certain region. You left Colorado to join the military and now you really want to go back and resettle there, or you love the mountains and you want to go home. So you're gonna look at schools in that Utah, Colorado region. Or you've already done a bunch of prereqs. You did some physics, you did some bio, you did some chemistry, and the schools that maybe you want to go to have those prereqs, so you already fulfilled those, and other schools might have more. So you're spending more money just to apply to these schools that you may not even get into. So you're gonna have to do a good deep dive on what kind of prereqs these schools have, because every school is different. And electives. So this is a big thing. When you go to PA school, you have clinical rotations, a standardized set of rotations that everyone does: emergency medicine, internal medicine, orthopedics, etc. And then depending on what school you are, you have a certain number of elective rotations. These are ones that maybe you love emergency medicine like me. Well, I better go get more of it, because if I can show my employer that I did 3 rotations of emergency medicine, that makes me a stronger candidate than someone who just did 1. All right, so it's very important that you choose a school that gives you electives and that you have a choice in what those electives are. And usually at least 3 electives is desired. A forever home, you're ready to move back, never leave. So you want to go to a school which puts you in a position to network with a community and hospitals in that region, so that when you get down to PA school, you've already had clinical rotations at a bunch of hospitals in Colorado. They know who you are. You're not just a name on a piece of paper. You are John, you are Emily. They know you and they liked you and you did a great job, so they want to hire you, even though there's other competition. And lastly, look, you just want to get in a freaking PA school. Like, you know what your grades are, you can accept that. What schools are going to give me the best chance of actually becoming a PA? So these are things that you have to take into consideration for you, and no one can answer these questions but you yourself. You have to be honest with yourself on what you want and then go from there. I believe there's some statistic out there that you need to apply to 12 programs in order to have a 50-50 chance of getting in. The average applicant applies to 8. That's a lot of money for application fees, but you give yourself a better chance with the more programs that you apply to. Prereqs. Me personally, when I was at SEER school preparing to go to PA school, I paid over $11,000 out of my own pocket to get prerequisites to apply to school. This was done through like Berkeley Extension. UNE has a really good online kind of post-baccalaureate, but it's really expensive. But one of the benefits of the UNE online post-baccalaureate is that you can do the courses on your own time. Like, you don't have to do a whole semester. You can finish the course in a month if you think you can do it well. There's that one. There's a lot of community college courses out there that you can take that are helpful. You just got to get those classes in, meet the prerequisites, because if you don't meet that, you can't even apply. GPA, let's say you did awful in college because you're out having so much fun and you're the life of the party. This is your time to lift that up, because they're going to look at with the CASPA application your credits from college And then what are your most recent credits? Like, what is that GPA? Can you prove that even though you maybe had a low GPA in college, that now you are set, you are focused, and now you have a 3.9 in your last 20 credit at 20 credit hours? Healthcare hours, this is your time to get into the ER. This is your time to get into an ambulance. This is your time to just rack and stack those hours to prove to the PA program that you are committed to the healthcare sector. Testing, this is a big one. The GRE sucks. Like, it's hard. Let's get it right. I mean, we just haven't done this stuff in a long time. We don't sit here and think about what words go in what gaps and what verbs and we don't do that. And so I recommend that you get books, that you actually, I recommend if you can get an in-person course, which would do a lot of quantitatives, a lot of the math, because really the only way you're going to get it is by someone teaching you again. Unless you're really freaking smart, congratulations, that's awesome. Then you have a leg up right away. Some schools are taking the PA CAT, which is basically the MCAT for PAs. I personally have not seen this test. It's pretty rigorous from my understanding, like 200 plus questions, very similar to the MCAT. There are, let's see here, 11, I believe 11 schools. I have a list I can show you guys of schools that just take the PA CAT. Another consideration is some PA schools might have waived the GRE completely due to COVID. But I think that's going to go away as COVID becomes the norm compared to where we were a year ago, where there's so much more uncertainty. So you're gonna have to do one of those two tests. There are, I think, maybe 80 programs that you don't have to do any of them. So if you are really scared of standardized testing, it's just not your bag, then maybe you start looking at schools that don't require any testing whatsoever. And lastly, shadowing. Every single school you go to, if you get an interview, is going to ask you why you want to become a PA. And the answer is not because I can't get in med school, because you already saw, to get into Wake Forest is like 2.3% acceptance rate. It's not easy. It's not easier to become a PA. It's hard. You need to be able to tell them why a PA over MD. What makes those two things different for you? And that's something you can only suss out for yourself. And really, you do that by shadowing. You can meet PAs in different specialties, see how they like their lives. You can go to different hospital settings, specialty settings, private practice, different geography, and see what the vibe is, how they enjoy it, because every state is different what they let PAs do. And PA pay and PA quality of life might be very different from Alaska to Montana. And of course, you have the application cycle. So first off, really before step one is all the other work, the grunt work. All right, you're finding your recommendations. You're letting them know you're going to need a letter from them months in advance. All right, you're starting a personal essay, writing about something about you and who you are uniquely. And then boom, if you're going to go to a spring starting PA program, that application opens up around April or so, usually the end of April. And that CASPA application is the primary way to apply to the vast majority of PA schools. There are some PA schools out there who don't use CASPA, but it's your one-stop shop to put all your data, so all your transcripts, all your grades, all your hours, your personal essay, everything into one place, and then you just select what schools that you want to apply to, and those schools just pulled it out of from CASPA. It's actually quite a time saver, because the next thing that will be the awfulest thing in the world, especially if you're applying to 12 universities, is the supplementary applications, because you have the CASPA application, and then that school itself has its own application, usually with like 4 to 5 different essay questions that you're going to have to fill out. Those take forever because you have to gear your questions specifically to each school. Very rarely can you use the same answers you did to one school's application onto the other application. Like, these are superbly time consuming. The rest of the summer, weeks to months, is spent inputting this data into CASPA, where it'll populate, like I said, your old GPA, it'll populate a non-science GPA, it'll populate a science GPA, and then you'll be able to list all your awards, your honors, your extracurricular activities, your personal essay, et cetera, all into CASPA. You get those recommendations set up. My advice and recommendations: find someone who can write you a good recommendation. I mean, great. Ask them, I need a great recommendation. Will you write me a strong recommendation? Be very blunt and honest what you need, because it makes a difference reading these. I've read the recommendations for the Tillman Scholar Foundation, and it makes a difference if someone knows you intimately, like they know who you are, they can speak to your character and they write like a page, versus someone who writes a paragraph. It's noticed. So find someone you know well, Find someone who will write you a strong and good recommendation and use them. And then personal statement. I'll go into this a little bit more on the next slide, but this is your time to shine. What makes you more special than the person who has a 4.0 GPA and a perfect GRE score? Why should they take you? You don't meet the metrics. Well, you meet them, but you don't exceed them. They have their pick of the litter. Why are you special? Why are you, as a military service member, special? What do you bring to the table? What can you help the other students with? This is what you need to figure out. And you need to be able to tell it in a story, because that's what they want to see, because reading facts is boring. They want to read a story that's engaging. And lastly, the last step around end of summer into fall is submitting that CASPA application in your supplementary applications. Some schools, and you'll have to do research because every PA school is different, will have rolling interviews. So the earlier you get your application in, the earlier you can be invited on an interview. But some schools don't read any of your applications until like the end, which is October or so. So you just have to research on what your school can do. There is definitely an advantage to getting your application in early if you go to a school that has rolling interviews and admissions. All right. Telling your story. I know you might not feel special, but you are. I mean, the things you do in the military are different than what your average 23, 26, 32-year-old does. And you don't see it because everyone around you does the same thing, right? So it's like being an Olympian. Everyone around you is Olympian, so you don't think you're special. But if you go freaking run a race with the running club at Boston, you're probably going to steam them, like burn them all, right? You need to see your value and what you've learned. Sit down and go through your experiences, go through your deployments, go through how much gear you're actually accountable for, probably like millions and millions of dollars of gear when you're 21 years old. Go through how many Marines and soldiers you mentored, you took care of, you brought back from combat alive. Like, these are all important things. And I hate to say it, when you write your application, an award is important too. Maybe everyone you know has a Bronze Star, but that means something in the civilian side of the world. All right. So focus on what makes you unique. You put in the work, talk about your challenges. Don't be just, I'm the best thing ever, because that's conceited. Talk about your challenges. What have you faced? What have you overcome? What are the stressors you've gone through? You can be vulnerable. These are complete strangers reading your essay. It doesn't matter, but be truthful, but you can be vulnerable. Get rid of the fluff. Like, they don't, and get rid of the verbiage. They don't know what a, I don't know. I can't think of any jargon right now. Oh, I mean, a wizzo, right? Like, what the hell is a wizzo? They don't know what that is. You're gonna have to speak to them in terms they understand. You have to create a logical storyline. All right. Opening paragraph. Start with something that captures their attention. You know, some sort of storyline that keeps them reading. All right. And then follow it through why this ties into why you want to be PA. What does you being in combat in Afghanistan in a fighting hole being shot at have to do with you want to be a PA? You have to tie these things together. And why now? Why are you leaving the military? And then, of course, the last thing you do, maybe you're not a great writer. That's okay. Not all of us are. You can hire a professional editor. So you do the work. It's your work. No one's writing it for you. But the editor can help you make it sound better, flow better, and just be a better product. It's worth it. You know, if the acceptance rate is 2.3%, but you know, upon graduating PA school, you can start with a yearly income of $120,000 in certain areas. I think it's probably worth to have someone help you write that. All right, the interview. You did it. You got through the application. It was submitted. You get this phone call in the middle of October from this random number saying, congratulations, you have an interview. Number one, it might be virtual or it might be in person. That's important because it makes it a bit different in how you do things. All right. Different types of interviews that you may have is one-on-one. So just you and someone else from the admissions committee talking about something, asking those questions, the kind of the character questions, objective questions. It could be a full panel. So you sitting there by yourself, and then like 10 paces forward, you have a panel of 3 scary looking people. It could be a group. It's like 10 of you and then like 10 panelists, and everyone wants to see how you interact and play with the team. It could be a group where they're like, you're stranded on a desert island. You have 7 things at your disposal. Rate them in the greatest order because they want to see how you collaborate with your peers. Or it could be like a mini interview, basically 4 minutes here, knock on the door, 4 minutes here, knock on the door. You're just moving from one interview to the other. Some schools make this super stressful, and that's just what they do. Some schools don't. Some schools, it's chill, it's relaxed, and they just want you to be you. That being said, no matter what you're doing, whether it's virtual or it's in person, you are dressing up. You are wearing a suit. Don't wear a black one, I recommend, because everyone wears black. All right, maybe a nice gray one. Do your hair, make it look nice and clean and pressed. They expect you to be put together because you're in the military. They don't expect you to be frumpled. They want you put together and to look nice. All right, that's how you're bearing. First impressions mean everything. Make eye contact, shake their hand firmly. All right, these are all just basic human things that you do when you meet someone. And this is how you're going to be judged. You have to stand out from the crowd. The fact that you got an interview is awesome. I think Wake Forest has about 3,000 applications for application cycle. They invite to interview maybe like 150 and they take like 88. So you have like basically a 50-50 odds of getting in if you make it to the interview, depending on what school you're at. So do your research, do it well. One way to answer these questions is the STAR format. They don't want verbosity. They want brevity. All right. They want you to have a story, a situation. What was the challenge? What did you do? And what was the result? All right. Very succinct and clear in this like storytelling format about how great you were that you did this thing, or how it was challenging, or how you cried, or how it was humbling. Like, be a human. You don't need to be a G.I. Joe. All right. So you got through the interview. Now here comes the phone call in December. That's when a lot of the phone calls go out, or if it's rolling interviews, maybe even November. And you got in. Congratulations. Here's some things you have to work on at that point. Documents. They want your official transcripts at this point. There's some papers you're going to have to sign saying, hey, I commit to coming to the school. Here's my deposit, somewhere between like $1,000 and $3,000. Make sure you do it on a timeline. Otherwise, they're just going to drop you because they have other people who are just as qualified as you who want to get in. Start planning your move. How are you getting your family there? All right. How are your finances? Do you need to find roommates in the area? They usually set up a Facebook page, if that's even a thing anymore. Not probably not TikTok, but they usually have some sort of site that all the new admits can go to start collaborating and join together. Celebrate. Go off and have a great time. You just like did a lot for the last year to get into your PA school of your dreams, to become a PA one day. Don't study. Stop it. You've been studying forever. It's time to go have some fun. All right. Don't sit there and prepare. At least take like a month off. All right. You can study if you want after that, but just take a month off to just enjoy yourself, treat your family to some dinner, a vacation, because they just put up with you and all your studying for a year, and have a good time. And God forbid you went to the interview and you got on the wait list. Don't despair. I think we had 4 people or so come off, maybe more come off the wait list the year I was there. And, you know, they did just as well as everyone else. The fact that you're waitlisted and you got interviewed means you're talented. So just follow the directions that the office tells you. Don't do more. Don't be calling them every freaking week. All right. Just follow along and be ready. One of my classmates didn't even get in until like the week before we started, and she drove across the nation to go to Wake Forest. Now she's a PA here in Massachusetts. So don't give up hope. It can happen like that. All right, you're in. Most PA schools are about 26 months nonstop. So unlike med school, where you have like the first year, and then you have like a summer off, and then the second year, usually they do some like internships and things in there. PA school does not stop. It's continuous. The first month for a lot of PA schools is a baselining of everybody. They want to make sure that everyone's at the same knowledge level. At Wake Forest, I think we called it like, I don't even know what we called it. It was like hell. It was like trauma block. Not because we were doing traumas, because it was traumatic. Like it was a lot. It's learning anatomy, it's learning the bones and the muscles in a week, having an exam on them, having like 3 exams every week, learning biology again, and ADP and ATP and all that stuff. Like it's just jammed together because they want to make sure you know what everyone else knows. Depending on the school that you got into and that you chose, either this environment is friendly and collaborative, and the program is there to support you through this, or it's people backstabbing and trying to get ahead, and it's competitive, and the program is okay with you failing because they just have someone else to fill your seat. It runs the gamut. All right. So you just got to make sure that you know where you're going, you research that school, you go visit the school, you talk to people. All right. Because where you go can really be different on the personality of who you're talking to and who your classmates are. And then you run into your didactic stage. All right. So that's about a year or so as far as your didactic stage. And then that's all in the classroom, depending where you go. If you go to Wake Forest, that's IBL which is like where you actually talk about a case. So you have a case, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you sit down, you work as a team, and you walk through that case and solve and get a diagnosis, instead of just death by PowerPoint all the time. So then the other schools are just death by PowerPoint the entire time. So those are things that you got to think about. Then you have OSCEs and SPA. So OSCEs are basically like you have standardized patients who come in, and you're doing like you would in the office. You go in, you knock on the door. Hi, my name is Candice Creecy. I'm a PA student here at Wake Forest University. Tell me what's going on. And you do a physical exam, you do a history, you make a diagnosis, you write a note, and you chart and all that good stuff. So those happen, and then you get into your rotations and electives. That's your second year at PA school. Your rotations last about a month long. You have your elective rotations, and within there, you're still taking exams. So at the end of every elective rotation, for the most part, I think like clinical rotations, there's 7 or so, you have to take a standardized exam. So it's like 150 questions in that field, and it's required and it's matched against everyone else in the nation. And then lastly, you finish all that, you usually have about a month of prep for the PANCE, which is a certifying exam. And then from there, you take your PANCE, you pass it, and congratulations, now you're a PA. Don't forget, somewhere in there, you're actually looking for your jobs, you're starting to get interviews, you're putting in resumes. So, I mean, in summary, it's a lot. It is exhausting. I found it harder than flight school, for sure. But if you put the time and effort into it, you'll get by just fine. Just fine. Post PA. So location, we already talked about this kind of at length. If you went to PA school in Colorado, you probably have an easier job getting a job in Colorado. It might be harder to find a job in Seattle because you didn't have any rotations there and no one knows who you are. So take that in consideration. Where do you want to live? How do you want to practice? How much flexibility do you want in your practice? Do you want to be very restricted in what you can and cannot do? Or do you want more openness? Loans. School is not free. You have the GI Bill. This is extremely valuable. People are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to become a PA, and you get to do it for free. All right. So make sure you utilize this. Make sure you start talking to the school about how to utilize your GI Bill, and you work that into your finances for the year. Do you want to work in a public agency or a private agency, nonprofit or for-profit? This will change how you're compensated. This will change how you're paid. This will change how they practice. There's a few different things with that. Specialty fellowships. All right, so I'm just going to unshare this real quick. Hold on, new share. Nope, not that one. Oh, I don't know how to do that. I'll share after this. I have a list of fellowships. There's something called APAP. APAP is a list of all the fellowships out there in the country and all the different specialties. Do you need to do a fellowship or / residency? No, you don't. You get a job just fine, OJT, and do okay. Some fellowships are not even worth it. Some fellowships, you're over there doing a fellowship, getting paid $60,000 a year, right next to another PA graduate who's doing the same exact job as you and is getting paid 120. It is what it is. Benefits of a fellowship. I can talk about Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic has an amazing emergency medicine fellowship. It is 18 months long. And the entire time that you're there, when you're working clinically, you work one-on-one with an emergency medicine physician, an attending. So the entire time you're working in the clinic, in the ER, you are getting feedback, you're learning from an attending physician. That is so valuable. If you looking at Brigham and Women's Hospital, if you're a brand new grad and you start working there, good luck. You have about 6 weeks of orientation and you're on your own to figure it out. So you also get experience, like I did central lines. I did over 100 intubations, just procedures and rotations like ENT, orthopedics, things you just don't get when you're a normal like PA getting OJT. So there's definitely benefits in some of the higher diagnostic and procedure-based specialties like surgery, emergency medicine, critical care, et cetera. It can be very valuable, and it's on your resume. And it can be one, and also gets you closer to taking a CAQ. So a CAQ is another exam. I'm not going to say it's like the MD board exams. It's not, but it's basically a baselining saying, hey, I've had 1,800 hours of experience. I know how to do all these different procedures. I have people to vouch for me, and I passed this 200 question test specifically in emergency medicine. congratulations, I have a CAQ, and it really doesn't buy me anything, but maybe just gives me a little bit of an edge over someone else looking for the same job. All right. And then leadership. I'm gonna be honest, there's not a lot of PAs in leadership positions. There's nurses and there's docs. So I think that tide is going to change as we become more competent in what we do. If you want to be in a leadership position, there's SEMPA, which is emergency medicine PAs. There's AAPA, which I'm sure some of you have heard of before, in hospital leadership positions. We in the military know how to lead, right? That's what we get taught to do. You have a strength in that, and you can really give back to the community by taking that role. All right, I'm done flapping my lips here. I will open up the floor to any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Candice. And so for anyone out there, you guys can, you all can turn on your video and audio, and we'll just have a discussion from here. So if you have any questions at all, I know I saw in the chat, there weren't any specific questions that I noticed, but I know Ryan, you were mentioning some stuff and you had some questions. Gabriella, if you have any questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Candice, for all the great information. I found it very helpful. Right now, I'm in the process of submitting my final applications, and I've done all the CASPA and the supplemental stuff, and I'm just kind of, you know, making sure that I've done my final review of my supplementals. And with that being said, I think one of the hardest things that I struggled with is I have a few friends in the military that I keep in contact with, and 3 of them were pursuing PA, or they still are. And one told me, you know, it was really discouraging. He said, "You think you're special, you're a dime a dozen." When I went to PA interviews, I was one of many military people applying. So you have a cool combat story, you have a cool story in the military, they got one better than you. And I just felt like, wow, I didn't realize so many military people are joining me as a corpsman. I have 15,000 hours of clinical experience. And yet I felt like, well, if that doesn't knock somebody off their feet, then I don't know how to make myself competitive. So that's my question. How do I highlight my work in particular?
Sure. So, I mean, with 15,000 hours, I believe you said, there are some programs out there that are built for higher hour people that kind of keeps other people out of the mix, right? So I think like University of Washington and SAT Network, they used to have a minimum requirement of 6,000 hours to even apply because they were based like very much off corpsmen. I think they reduced that to 3 recently. So, I mean, that is going to knock someone off their seat right there. Honestly, it will. That's a lot of hours. It comes down to messaging. Honestly, yeah, there's a lot of military veterans. You're gonna all get lumped together. So not only do you need to speak about how you're special and what you've experienced as a military veteran, you're also gonna have to speak about how you're special compared to everyone else, but more so collaboratively. So teamwork, right? You think military, you think teamwork. All right. So it's not putting other people down about, you know, I'm better than them because of this. It's just telling your story better and sticking out. So if you got an interview, congratulations. Now, what about you as a person? When you meet that person one-on-one, you might come off completely different than the other military vet there. At that setting, like you're back to square 0 in the interview. Like you have some good stories to tell, but you're unique. And, you know, I'm sorry that it is discouraging because it is quite hard to get into PA school and not everyone's going to get in, but just because they had that experience doesn't mean that you will. You know, keep selling your story, find out who you are, you know, be honest with yourself and message that appropriately to fit towards the program you want to go to. You know, you might tell a different story for Wake Forest over USC, you know, because the school has different values. So how does your story and your values align with Wake Forest's values versus how does your story and your values align with USC? So you're going to have to kind of shape your story for every application you do. Is that helpful?
Yes, that's helpful. And then just another question is, I was thinking about what kind of questions I would have if I had a potential interview. And one of those is like, you know, what was this situation, like you said, that you had to encounter a problem and how did you solve it? And I do have a lot of stories for that, but I want to know what a strategy would be to make it concise, to take out the fluff and the drama, because the military always confronts you with very stressful situations, whether it's, you know, I dealt with a lot of suicidal ideations, high tense, you know, stressful situations, and then also like maybe some racism and sexism, and then more like operational related problems. So which story would be best without like causing so much drama and just kind of getting to the point, like there was a problem, I help solve it, and there you go.
So I can't answer that for you. Really that star format I showed you, the STAR, that's going to help you narrow down your story. I mean, you're going to have to pick which one and frame it so it's appropriate. I would just get like 4 or 5 really good stories that maybe tell different angles, but also I would say look for things outside the military too. Like you're more than a corpsman, right? I mean, corpsman is something you did and you're very proud of it, but you probably did other things too. Maybe you volunteered at a club in high school, maybe you climb mountains on the side. Like there's more to you than being a military service member. So it's important that you shape that as well. And you maybe pick a couple stories outside of the military that'll be beneficial in your interview.
Thank you.
Hi guys, so this is Ryan Martin Valenzuela. How's everybody doing?
Good, what you got, Brian?
So as you can see from what I've written in the chat while you were providing your presentation, which was quite in-depth and very helpful, thank you very much. Having said that, I have applied to 11 PA programs, and I have been rejected by 6 of them. One of them I don't want anything to do with. And so I'm still waiting to hear from 4 PA programs at this point in time. My concern is I really am at a loss. I'm at a loss on so many different levels. I've gone to the CASPA, I've gone through the supplemental applications. I have 33,000, more than 33,000 patient care hours. I'm a hospital corpsman, preventive medicine technician, emergency medical technician with the Marine Corps. And then on top of that, while I was active duty, I earned a Bachelor's of Science in Health Sciences, Emergency Management, with a 3.46 GPA. I have a Master of Science in Health and Kinesiology, Public Health, with a 3.53
GPA. Yep, you got to see it.
Yep. And then I recently moved back to California because, well, I don't want to be in the South anymore.
Okay.
And I left my position as a health scientist epidemiologist with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, to move back to, where I feel comfortable. So I've done everything right. I have the GPA, I have the patient care hours. I even worked with the veteran representative from Duke University who helped me write my personal statement, which is great. It's all wonderful stuff, but I just don't understand how I've been rejected by 6 programs, and it's very deflating.
Sure. I mean, it just takes one. I was rejected by 10. I was rejected by 10. And it just takes one, honestly. And maybe you don't want to go to the programs you're rejected for, to be honest. I mean, there's a fit. Okay. I don't know. I mean, looking at your GPA, I don't know what schools you applied to, and this is not a conversation to have here because there's a lot of people on the line, and I want to respect their time. I do hope you are working with Services School and that you're utilizing an ambassador, because that's another great tool. They can look at your application, your GPA, your GRE score, your PA CAT, and be really honest with you about gaps you might have. And that's something else offline. I really encourage you to sign up if you're not already signed up, Ryan. It is deflating. It's hard when think about it. If you have an acceptance rate of 2.2%, that means roughly 97.8% of people are not getting in. It's not you. You're with 97.8% other people. That's a lot of people who don't get in. All right. Maybe you want like I said, I'm an idiot. I apply to all the top schools because that's just, if you're going to do it right. And that's really hard. I mean, if you go to apply to every school that has like a 37% acceptance rate or a 21% acceptance rate, you might have better chances. You have to look at your own situation and kind of go through it. And I do recommend, like I said, getting a Services School, getting an ambassador, applying so that we can look at your application, maybe give you some recommendations on where to apply with what luck you've had so far. If you go through it again, if you really want to become a PA, then maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year, and you change your tactics. You know, I mean, we change our tactics when we don't succeed, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that might be the answer here.
Absolutely, you're right. Now I do have there. It's just so interesting. I mean, I've heard from other veterans who are either in a PA program or already practicing PAs, and they have very clearly indicated to me that PA programs do not necessarily care for veterans. So I think you would think that you would want somebody with experience, but it seems like they want the 20-something-year-old, you know, who just got their bachelor of whatever, you know. And then
I know it's hard to have a positive attitude, but that's probably going to come off in your interviews as well. If you get an interview, I just feel the frustration in you, and I feel it, brother. I get it. I went to Wake Forest, loves veterans.
Okay.
Wake Forest loves veterans, and
Sure.
and I have several other veteran friends who are also PAs who had a great time at their PA program, and they also brought in veterans. And so there are some resources out there as far as what schools might be more veteran friendly than other schools. And some schools just want the money. They just want butts and seats. They're going to take the highest GPA they find,
That's
and they're not
clearly
looking
their
for
application
substance.
process. I mean, that's an understood. You know, I mean, it's pretty
Mhm.
ridiculous how much they charge for us to apply to every little aspect of everything. I mean, we're talking about thousands of dollars,
Sure.
like you mentioned. And the other part of my frustration is that I was a front runner for the Navy's PA program, and then I was diagnosed with cancer, and so I was medically retired, right? And this is my first time after about 10 years of being out that I applied to, that I actually formally and officially applied to PA programs for the first time. So that even adds even more frustration
Sure.
to my situation, right? And I'm sure you and I can probably, or somebody else, we can discuss all of these details offline, because there are other
Sure.
people who have some other questions
Yeah.
that need to be answered. But yeah, so admittedly, really my situation is beyond frustrating. Like I'm
Yeah.
not frustrated. It's a different word.
Sure. Sure.
I'm actually infuriated. So
Sure.
and I
No, I
think
hear ya.
and I think those feelings are reasonable. I don't think that I'm I don't
Sure.
think I don't think that it's unreasonable to have these feelings, you know. So
Sure. No, I don't think so either. But I think, there's two ways to view that. There's either, you can have those feelings and you just got to push forward if this is what you want.
yeah,
We
I
got to
mean,
find,
I'm
we
gonna
got to
keep
find
doing it.
gaps. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So get with us offline. All right. And we can look at your stuff one-on-one and
Cool.
see if there's any gaps to fill. And if
Great.
there's not gaps to fill, maybe there's something else that's going on. So we cannot guarantee you admission to a PA program, but we can do our best to see how we can help strengthen your application. All right, Ryan?
Thank you very much.
You bet. Let's move on here just because I have some other questions. I saw someone from here on out. Can you guys raise your hand via the Zoom app so I can call on you? Just because I think, do you know how to do the little button down there? I think there's little hands you raise. No. All right. I saw Trey here earlier. So let's get Trey on there.
Okay. Or my question was, as far as specialties go, I was wondering like which specialties have the most autonomy as regards to like practicing, and then which don't, and then what is like the ideal specialty for like, I guess like what the PA is like meant to be in healthcare.
Sure. So autonomy is, here's the hard part. So in med school, you know that every medical student and then resident and then attending has the same progression, right? You go to med school 4 years long, you do a residency anywhere from 3 to like 7 years in length. And you know that when that person's an attending physician, you know what experience they have. When it comes to PA, you have no idea. They could have just finished the 2-year program and went straight into the emergency department. They could have had like 5 years as a nurse and then did a fellowship. So there's just no baselining. All right. As far as autonomy, it's really variable. And this is why it's frustrating. It's variable by practice, location, and your workplace. So you as a surgical PA in Chicago at the University of Chicago may have more autonomy than a surgical PA doing the exact same job in Ohio. you just don't know. As far as it's just so dependent statewide. And that's why one of the things I preach is while you're in school and you're starting to look at jobs, you start looking at the rules, you start looking at the organizations. There's PA organizations in each state that you go to that you can research, and they'll go over kind of what your scope is as a PA in that state. So like Mayo Clinic, a PA there can actually practice independently at a rural ER. They're the only provider there because there's also telemedicine where at any point they can call up the physician at the main Rochester network and have a supervising physician that helps them with orders and just any help they need. Because honestly, MDs, attending physicians have more training than the average PA. Obviously, absolutely PA coming out of school. Like they know what they're doing, and we need our collaborative team. Okay. It's not PA versus MD. We do this together. So this is a roundabout way to say that's going to really depend on where you are, the system you're practicing under, and who your supervising physician is. To answer your question, Trey?
Yes, that answers it. If you don't mind, I have one more. So I just got out of the Marine Corps. I was infantry, so I don't have a like medical background at all. And I just enrolled in I just started my fall semester. As far as I guess volunteering and then getting like that medical experience, I've looked into scribing. Do you have any other I guess suggestions like as of what to do?
Sure. So you can volunteer. Some people went out and got their EMT and then wrote on a rig. That's takes a lot of time. Scribing is sometimes not accepted anymore. It depends on the school. That's why it's important to kind of identify what schools you want to go to, because you're gonna have to tailor. We don't have enough money and enough time to do everything that all these different schools wants to do. So you're gonna have to tailor your approach to that school. A lot of times on the school website for requirements, they'll list what they accept as healthcare hours. And then you could look on that list and see what you can accomplish. But scribing is a good one. Phlebotomy actually is a good one. ER, getting on an EMT rig, being an EM tech in the emergency department is also a good one. But yeah, look at those schools specifically and they'll be able to list off kind of other avenues to get healthcare hours. I saw
Oh, Candice, you got muted.
I saw Justin Rapp raise his hand.
Peter, you need to allow him to chat and promote him.
Oh, okay, I'll get on that. Yeah, Justin, I think I tried to promote you to panelist earlier. I'll try again. Someone else can jump in now and I'll figure that out.
Saw some other people raise their hands. Anton? If you can't speak, I can use chat if it doesn't work. All right, Justin, if we can't get you going, you can try putting in the chat here. I'll try to answer it here.
Should be promoted now to panelist. Let's see. Yeah, he's here. Justin, you can unmute yourself. I think that's, there you go.
I'm trying so hard.
There you go. There you go.
All right, you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hey, I had some questions about the recommendation letters. Being in the military, you know, we bounce around a lot. Not only do we bounce around a lot, I'm actually pretty stable here, but the providers that oversee me as a medic, they bounce around a lot. I managed to convince, I guess, a couple of doctors that maybe I'm okay at what I do. And so I guess my question was twofold. Number one is like, what constitutes an outdated recommendation letter, short of the answer being, you know, as recent as possible? And when you say a strong letter of recommendation, what sort of content does that involve? What defines something as strong to a school?
Sure. So outdated. That's a great question. Probably someone you've interacted with in the last 5 years. And as far as strong, this is basically like a fit rep, right? So that's a Marine Corps thing. Maybe you have your evals, which are different than what we do in the Marine Corps. A lot of times you write them on your own. An Army, same thing, right? So
Yeah.
as I write a fit rep for someone, I'm going, if they are good at what they do, I'm going to write a strong fit rep. I'm going to say, they are the best captain I've ever worked with. One of, number one out of 100. So your recommendation is going to be something like that. You want a strong recommendation that says that Justin is the best medic I've ever worked with. He is directly responsible for saving 47 lives on the combat, on the battlefield. It's specific. It gives you examples of why they think you're so great. It's not just like Justin's awesome, love working with them, the end. It's giving specific examples, how you rate among your peers, their credibility as a reviewer, and who they are. And then usually some sort of character component too, right? So they know how you work professionally, but they also should know who you are personally and be able to talk to your character as a human being. That's what I mean. So if they're writing a recommendation, it can't be this weak, like Justin's my bro. It needs to be coming from a reputable source with facts.
Okay. So like quantifiable, qualitative, and maybe an opinion in there as well.
Yeah.
This is
Just think
gonna
about if you're reading someone, you're about to hire someone to be one of the medics that's going to work under you. And you get to read a recommendation from another medic that they work with at the last unit. And you read this recommendation. What do you want to see? Like, you want to see details. You want to see what they thought of them as a medic compared to the other medics they work with. Like, think about that. That's going to be very similar to what they're looking for.
No, this is going to cost me so many cases of beer.
It is. And no jargon. Like, if they're going to use jargon, at least have them elaborate on what that means.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much. And great presentation, Candice. That was awesome.
We have time for probably one more question. So someone can jump
I saw
on and then we put it up afterwards.
I think I saw Tammy raise her hand there.
Hey Candice, sorry, I'm up for the next presentation. Someone had a question just now about whoever asked the question about a good recommendation letter. I just wanted to let you know, if you're already working, what I've found, because I do a lot of reviews also, and I've been working I've also worked with academic for counselors, and I found that just from my perspective, that a lot of times if you get a letter of recommendation from whoever is your direct supervisor currently, that's also very helpful. And if you already identify your school, if you are working with a provider, a physician, a nurse, or someone who's an alum at that university, that has been helpful, and it helped me actually get into nursing school. One of the doctors I worked for was actually an alumni for the university I wanted to apply for. And so that network and finding out maybe if is that person on the board or really affiliated with the university you want to apply for, can also help you if you're already out of the military and you're in the civilian sector working, trying to network to find out who is sitting on the board of the university, and and whether or not, if you're already working for the provider, if they can give you the letter recommendation. That actually helped me get into a really competitive nursing school. So
yeah, and to piggyback off that, you need to be more than a face, more than a name on a piece of paper. So like you said, there's 10 different veterans, you all look the same. Well, if you're actually calling that school, interacting with the program in advance, you're going to webinars, you're maybe visiting the school if, per COVID regulations, et cetera, you're reaching out and talking to students, so they know who you are. Well, you stick out already when you get to the interview, and they recognize your name in a pile of applications. They read 3,000 of these, right? So you gotta give yourself a fighting chance if you know what program you want to go to, spend the time, the resources to go meet those people face to face. Sorry, I wanted to answer one more. David in the chat had written, how do you find out about electives and rotations in PA programs? Just doing what I just told you. Get with students. They'll be able to tell you about that and what they offer. Sometimes those schools list their curriculum on their webpage, and they'll tell you how many elective rotations you get. You won't get into details on like where they're located and things like that. But rotations are everything. And if your school does not have quality rotations, it will impede your ability to become a great PA. All right, that's all I have, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, I appreciate you staying on the line through all this. I think my email is there for as far as service to school. You can get in touch with me there. You can get in touch with us and apply for help if you want it. We're here as your resource. It's a hard process and we're free. What we offer you is something that people pay thousands of dollars for. So please get with us and we'll help you along the process. Have a good night.
Thanks so much for joining, everybody. We'll make sure we post this on the Service to School website. So if you want to refer back to it at any point, you'll be able to do that. Thanks so much for joining us, though. Definitely email us with more questions, and have a great day.